Southern Hemisphere Team of the Year for 2023, folks. It was not a bad year for Southern Hemisphere Rugby. We had another World Cup come down this neck of the woods, although not my neck of the woods. We finished runner-up here in New Zealand. South Africa got their fourth title. New Zealand made the final, despite maybe being expected to not do that well. So South Africa out and out leaders for World Cups. It's a win for the Southern Hemisphere. I'll take that. New Zealand, as I mentioned, finalists. The Wallabies, a bit disappointing. Pumas made a semi-final, so they're not their first semi. And some of the other teams. Chile showed some amazing rugby. Namibia got a crack when they don't get a lot of international game time, to be fair. Uruguay also showed what they're about. A lot of expectation on Tonga and Samoa. Some of the games were better than others. And Fiji, I think, getting out of their pool certainly, raised a few eyebrows in the right direction. So, yeah, big year for Southern Hemisphere rugby. We'll pick a 23-man squad plus a coach and then get to a few honorable mentions. Such is the nature of picking kind of any kind of team of the year. You're going to have to leave guys out. That's part of the deal. But we'll go through the squad and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how it is lining up. Stephen Kitsoff is my first guy. Prop. Love him. He's been one of my favorite loose heads for quite some time. Hell of a scrummager, first and foremost. That's kind of 80% of the reason you pick him. That's the meat. And then the rest of it, the sauce. Where the hell am I going with this? The extras you get from Kit's office is thread the breakdown and is just high defensive work rate. He's a heck of a tackler. He's always a threat. So, you don't get many surprises from Stephen Kitsoff, which is a good thing because he's very consistent. So if he's, poaching at the breakdown, that's not a surprise because it's kind of what he's known for in his scrummaging. Is up there with the best loosehead props in the world. He's maybe not the most devastating ball carrier. There's a couple of other looseheads I do want to get to at some point who certainly are more attacking threats than Kitsy, but for what he does in his core role, he's amazing. And the other prop I'm going to go with is Frans Malherbe. So Frans Malherbe, I know South Africans love him, and I feel like he's starting to get some appreciation from kind of wider, circles, and it's maybe a hard one that he doesn't get the appreciation because of the way the Springboks manage their bench in terms of the front rowers. They don't have many front rowers that go 75 minutes in a game. They usually go around about half the game before they get a sub. But I mean, Malherbe is he the best scrummager in the game? If not him, who? Because he is an absolute machine at scrum time. Very rarely concedes scrum penalties, and I haven't got the stats on it, but my gut tells me his defensive work rate is a lot higher than it used to be. Even his ball carrying work rate, I feel like would be higher than previous years. Certainly, his tackle rate is a lot higher. He used to get criticised for basically only being there for the scrum. That's his core role, but I mean, he does the other stuff really well too. So a couple of Springbok props, I think, makes sense. And then you got to complete the trio. You go with the Springbok hooker. You chuck in Bongi and Bonambi. He had to kind of carry a bit of extra weight with Malcolm Marx's early end to the 2023 season, but they didn't really miss a beat. And then even he went off so early in that World Cup final that Dion Fourie, who's been a loose forward for years, had to kind of roll back the clock and resume his role as a hooker. So all three of them, Fourie, Marx, and Bongi, had a role to play, but you give it to Bongi for the way he carried that side. I mean, he loves a carry from close range. He loves a maul. He's a really high work rate player as well. And the Springboks line-out operates really well. And you need a couple of good jumpers and you need a good thrower. And Bongi is certainly a big part of that. So, yes, it's an all Springbok front row, which I don't think should surprise many, given how important that is. And if you can hear the rain, it is absolutely bucketing down here in Auckland. Locks, I've gone with Scotty Barrett. He made World Rugby's Team of the Year as well. And I'll chuck him in here because I do think he had a pretty good year in 2023. He is prone to the odd bit of brain explosion, disciplinary, cynical or foul play stuff. But what you get from him for the most part is a really high work rate, really physical and really skilled second rower. He can drop into the back row if necessary as well. But I mean, his meters per carry tends to be kind of, I think, double. Like if he gets a meter, one carry he gets 2 meters kind of thing, which is more than a lot of locks can manage. So he does get that go forward ball. He does make a lot of tackles. He doesn't miss a heck of a lot. For the Crusaders, for the All Blacks, he's been an absolute stalwart. And then another guy who made the kind of dream team of the year for World Rugby and was a player of the year nominee, You can't go past Big Eben Etzebeth. He's been, how long has he been around for South Africa now? He's one of those guys that has been consistent for as many years as basically he's been playing. I mean, was there years when he was playing for the Stormers that he would be injured for the Stormers, not get any game time, and then get called up for the Springboks without having played any Super Rugby for like months, and then just jump straight into Test Rugby and not look like he was rusty or, not look behind the pace kind of thing. That's Eben Etzebeth, and 2023 was no different. Huge physical presence. If he's playing as the opposition, you absolutely know about it. He crunches tackles. He's another one who gets good go-forward ball. He was a Player of the Year nominee for a reason, so yeah, a couple of big physical units in the second row. It's mostly a South African type 5 with one All Black poking his nose in there. And then blindside flank, I'm going to go with another Springbok, Pieter-Steph du Toit. Obviously, he won World Player of the Year back in 2019, and he can't have been that far off the pace for this year's nomination as well, because come World Cup time or just prior, he absolutely found his best game again. Obviously, came back from a long-term injury where you weren't sure if he was going to be the same player, but we got to see Pieter-Steph du Toit being Pieter-Steph du Toit in that kind of latter half of the year. I mean, 28 tackles in the Rugby World Cup final was the top tackler. That is a hell of a work rate. To get almost 30 tackles is virtually unheard of. He was the top South African forward for carries at the World Cup, one of the top tacklers of the tournament. He's just an absolute beast. And the way he shoots out of the line to make guys' lives miserable closing down that space, he is a proper work rate player. Open side flanker, I'm going to chuck in, he's another freak in the best way, Levani Botia from Fiji. See him more playing for La Rochelle probably than I do for Fiji, because Fiji don't get the game time that countries like the All Blacks and whatnot do, but his ability to turn over ball, I mean, he's maybe not quite as good as Pocock, but he's not far off. Is he as good as Pocock? He's very, very, very adept at just getting those big mitts over the ball, and he's just so hard to move. Turnover merchant, and in terms of his ball carrying game, he's certainly better than Pocock. He's got a crazy offload game. He's Fijian, so that kind of fits the stereotype, but he was, I think, one of like the second top offloaders from that Fijian side. He was Fiji's top tackler at the World Cup, and he is an absolute turnover merchant. So, yeah, man, it's no surprise that he plays for one of the best sides in France. He is just one of the best flankers in the world. Used to be a prison guard. Now he's one of the best players in the world. So, yep, Levani Botia. He is an absolute beast. And then Ardie Savea at 8. There's virtually no question here. He's Player of the Year. He does incredible things. I still remember when he was coming into the Hurricanes squad when his brother was the Savea. And it was like, oh, Julian Savea's got a brother. He plays rugby and he's all right. And they would manage his minutes. They would give him a game every other week and give him 40 minutes because they didn't want him to over-stress himself by playing too much games on a still growing kind of like teenage body. He's come a long way, to surpass his brother in terms of his rugby legacy. That's no small accomplishment, man. Now he's Player of the Year. Most carries at the World Cup of any player, most tackles of a New Zealand player. He wins turnovers, he does offloads, he's got crazy dummies. He is an absolute athlete. If you've seen him play in this year, just feel blessed to the fact that you got to see one of the best players in the world in their prime, just doing incredible things. Ardie Savea, I would be surprised if he didn't make most people's dream team of the year, Player of the Year, whatever team of the year. He's basically going to be there if he is eligible. So that is your forward pack. For the reserves, I'm going to chuck in Julian Montoya from the Pumas. He plays a lot of minutes. Whereas the Springboks manage their guys, to do around about half the game. The Pumas are very, very reliant on Captain Montoya. High minute player, loves them all. One of the top tacklers of the tournament. I just think he makes the Pumas a better side. I'm not sure if they get to the semis without a guy of his talents. I'm going to chuck in a Wallaby and Gus Bell. He's an attacking freak. he gets stupid amounts of run meters for a loose head prop, and his scrummaging's gotten a lot better the last few years. So if you wanted a prop to come on after kits off in the last 10-15 minutes and absolutely go wrecking ball havoc, you could do worse than going for Gus Bell. And then tight head prop, Ben Tamiafuna from Tonga, showed that he is maybe a real missed opportunity from New Zealand. Because remember, he's a Kiwi by birth, and I'm pretty sure, based on what I've seen from Tonga, they could have got good value out of him. I'm pretty sure they wanted him to lose weight back in the day to be eligible for the All Blacks. But man, he proved he can do it his way. His game against South Africa was absolutely incredible. Big scrummager. His ball carries were nuts. So absolutely holding the flag for Tonga guys as well. Maybe it's a great thing that he never got All Black selection, so we could see just what he could do for Tonga. Will Skelton is maybe a bit of a controversial one because he didn't get that much game time for the Wallabies, certainly at the World Cup. Mainly thinking about what he's done for La Rochelle. Could he replicate it at international level? Not always, but another guy who's just so hard to move. All-time, big physical presence. Won a Champions Cup with La Rochelle for the second year. Unbelievable player. Just brings things that other guys can't bring due to his big physical size. And then two more forwards. Pablo Matera from Argentina, another guy who kind of left the World Cup a little bit early. But remember, Rugby Championship, he was the top ball carrier of the entire competition. So big loss for Argentina, although they do have a lot of loose forwards. A guy who can cover the entire back row. And then I've gone with another forward, taking a little bit of a leaf out of the Springboks here. I put in Quacka Smith on the bench as well, so I've only got two backs on the bench. Quacka Smith, I think, proved that there is a role for a guy to be a specialist kind of super sub. Maybe similar to what we used to see from Beauden Barrett back in like 2015. Like, just excelled in the substitutes role. Quacka Smith, I've seen stats about him, just like his contributions to the game, I think, are almost second to none from the bench. His carries, tackles, turnovers. He's an absolute high work rate player. Can cover a lot of positions as well. So, yes, that's your forwards. Into the backs, I've gone with Aaron Smith. I think he went out on a high despite the fact that they lose the World Cup final. He's still got one of the best passes in the game. He scored tries. He got try assists this year. Him and Faf were probably the two kind of biggest options, but I've gone with Aaron. It's a shame that his time in the All Blacks is done. There's been times when you've seen behind him, it's like almost we don't have anybody else who's anywhere near his level. It was him and TJ for a long time. I do think we have some good halfbacks coming through now, so he leaves the team probably at the right time where he's still such a good player. I think we're going to miss him. Just the beauty of his pass is one for the ages, but goes out on a high. I think he was still in good form. Not perfect, but good form at 9. 10, I've gone against the World Rugby Dream Team of the Year. Maybe a little bit controversially, but I've gone with Handré Pollard. I think he only played 4 games of international rugby this year, so you could say doesn't qualify, not enough. But the dude comes back from a long-term injury, drops straight into the Rugby World Cup itself. I think his first game was the game against Tonga, and he comes off the bench in a couple of games, kicks his goals, starts in the World Cup final, and kicks all 12 of South Africa's points. New Zealand had missed kicks in that final. Mo'unga and Jordie Barrett both missed kicks in that final. Handré Pollard did not, and he had more run meters than Mo'unga in that final as well. So Handré Pollard, I think, is a genuine difference maker between winning a World Cup or even just getting to the final. Because, I mean, Springboks, 1 point game, 1 point game, 1 point game. Handré Pollard is the guy you need when you've got a 1 point game. He's the difference between winning and losing a 1 point game. So for me, that's worth its weight in gold. So he gets the nod at number 10. 12, I have gone with the guy I just mentioned, missed the kick in the World Cup final, but Jordie Barrett, I think overall across the course of the year, had a pretty good year. He's obviously shifted positions a few times for the All Blacks. He's made a pretty good go of it at 12. He's a big unit. He gets over the line. I think we missed him against France in that opening game of the Rugby World Cup when we lost, but he's got the playmaking skill set, because remember, he's played Test 10 before in one game. He's played fullback. He's played on the wing. He has got a general all-round skill set. He can catch high balls. He's a huge physical specimen, and his defensive reads been mostly pretty good. I think he tackles in the mid-80s. So, yeah, Jordie Barrett, I think, was a pretty good asset for the All Blacks. And then Rico at 13, I think had his best year at 13 that we've seen from him since his semi-kind of controversial move from the wing to the midfield. He certainly still got that gas, which allows him to exploit space that other 13s maybe cannot. I think he had 4 assists at the World Cup, so he does know how to pass the ball, which is something he's been critiqued on before. So Jordie Barrett and Rico in the mid. And then left wing, I'm going to go with another guy who I don't think South Africa wins the World Cup without, and that's Cheslin Kolbe. Cheslin Kolbe against France. I don't think you guys win against France without Cheslin Kolbe. He's an absolute freak of a player in that he almost has as many clean breaks in the World Cup as he does defenders beaten. Like, if you ever look at the stats on games, defenders beaten per game is usually like 20 or 30 for a team. It can be less, can be more, but on average. And then clean breaks is less than 10. Well, Kolbe, I think, had 7 clean breaks and 10 defenders beaten across the tournament. So he is unbelievably dangerous on turnover ball, or just if you give him even half a gap, he can make it look like you've just left the door wide open for him. That charge down against Ramos is obviously going to be a key moment. I think his best game probably was against France in that quarterfinal. But yeah, I know he had his moments in that final where he was just, couldn't bear to watch the game with the yellow card. But yeah, Cheslin Kolbe, he's an X-Factor player if ever there was one. On the right wing, I've gone with Mark Talia, Breakthrough Player of the Year. Another guy who just kind of freakishly less so with the clean breaks and more with the defenders beaten, is able to bust tackles when he doesn't have the right to bust tackles. I forget what his genetic makeup is. Not that it really matters, but it's like he's Kiwi, he's South African, is it Samoan? Like, yeah, if ever there was a rugby, like a guy made in a lab to play rugby, it seems like it's Mark Talia. So I'm just happy he plays for my Blues. Breakthrough Player of the Year was a good award for him. And then fullback, I've gone with Damian Willemse. Most run meters in the World Cup final. Versatile guy, allows the Springboks to play that bench that they do because he can cover so many positions. Loves to attack. He's got a good kicking game on him. They didn't ask him to do the goal kicking, which I think was a bit of pressure off. I think when he's asked to do the goal kicking, it's a little bit more pressure that he doesn't really need. And then for his club, he's been playing some good rugby as well. So Damian Willemse there at fullback has had a pretty bloody good year. 2-time World Cup winner now, that man. 2 backs on the bench. I have gone one with Beauden Barrett. I think he made World Rugby's Team of the Year. He can cover a lot of positions. I know he's a little bit of a kind of a controversial one because people don't like him being behind Mo'unga. They think, he shouldn't be at fullback. We've got better fullbacks. Well, when we played Will Jordan at fullback, I don't think he looked as good as Beauden Barrett. I think Bodie was able to just kick the ball, control the game, take it to the line when needs be. Scores a try in a World Cup final. I still think he's a good player. He is coming back to New Zealand after a stint in Japan. And then I've also gone with Will Jordan, top try scorer at the World Cup with 8. Could have had 9 if not for that lack of a pass. He's just an elusive runner, very, very dangerous player. Certainly one of the best in the world. He's really unlucky to be on the bench of this team, but yeah, very, very dangerous guy. I don't have a halfback on my bench, but Cheslin Kolbe, being the talent that he is, can cover 9 in a pinch. Coach, I think you have to go with Jacques Nienaber. He's a World Cup winning coach. He's moved to Leinster since the World Cup. If you've been watching any European rugby, you know his immediate impact has been felt on that Leinster defence. They are looking rock solid. So, yeah, I don't know that I think he got more comfortable with the spotlight of the Springboks head coaching role over time. I think he's going to enjoy himself more in the back room, a bit like Wayne Smith here in New Zealand. I think prefers, obviously he went with the women's team to be back into that kind of head coaching role. But I think he's going to give us his best work in the back room, maybe more than being the kind of head coach. But credit to him, man. World Cup winning coach. That's the 23-plus coach. Honourable mentions for the side. Australian Mark Nawani-Tuase. Pretty hard to get into this team as an outside back, but he's genuinely looked world-class for an Aussie side that didn't have a great year. South Africa, I mean, Steer Kolisi's bloody unlucky not to make the side. People don't really clear out rucks like him. Ox and Che, I mean, you could go with other Springbok front rowers as well. I don't think they make it out of that England game without Big Ox. And then Franco Mostert, the kind of unsung hero in that Springbok second row. Absolute tackling machine. For New Zealand, Sam Cane, another one who's a proper tackling machine. Obviously gets a red card in the final, which is unfortunate. Tyrell Lomax as tight head prop has scrummed the house down pretty well. Tamaiti Williams also has been very good. Waisea Naya from Fiji in the midfield. Could go there ahead of Rico Ioane. He's been very, very dangerous whenever he's been playing for Fiji. Sets up tries, scores tries. Marcos Kremer is maybe the biggest omission from my heart of hearts, but it's a really competitive backer. I couldn't go ahead of Peter Steff, but Marcos Kremer, top tackler of the Rugby World Cup. Absolute stalwart for Argentina. And Thomas Gajo, if you're looking for a loose head prop to get some go forward ball, that guy is still a very young man. He's got a lot of game time ahead of him. Chilean captain Martin Sigrin, absolute tackling machine. Did his country really proud at the World Cup. Manuel Aldaro from Uruguay, turnover merchant, like proper kind of David Pocock skills in that himself. Theo McFarlane from Samoa was an absolute unit as well. He is pure athlete. He can carry, he can win lineouts, he can steal lineouts, he can win turnover ball, he can tackle. He is one of the best players in the world. Richard Hardwick from Namibia, proper tackling machine as well. I don't know, man. Charles Piatel from Tonga. There's lots of other good players. That's the Southern Hemisphere team of the year. It's been a great year, folks. Thank you for coming along for the year. Congratulations once again to South Africa for winning the World Cup. New Zealand for winning the Rugby Championship. A couple of kind of Southern Hemisphere trophies. Fiji did well. Wallabies, you guys are getting a new coach. It was great to see some of these teams at the World Cup, which we maybe don't really get to see as much of in ordinary times. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, folks. Consider it a Christmas or New Year's gift to me. It'll be much appreciated. Check out my other channel, 2 Cents on Tour. I'll put a link up there or down there. Check that out as well. You guys take care of yourselves and enjoy your New Year's. Take care. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.